there'll be probably some similar themes and stuff that pop up here, but I think we're of the age where like we're maybe the 40s is a transitional period in life.
You're 40 now? You hit 42?
I'm 41.
41, yep. I'm on
So, like,
40 now too.
Yeah, so I mean, you go through these changes, right? There's these stages or epochs of life. There's these eras of life, and you know, you're one person at this time, and you're another person at this time, and you're another person at this time, and so you change as a person. You grow, you develop, and then life changes as you change too, and it shows up in different ways. And I've gone through my own changes, my own series and eras of life, right? And so I've been one of those people who's been really ambitious and like vision oriented with things that I do. You know what I mean? Like my artwork and other things. And I think that's the case with a lot of people I tend to be associated with in life. Is they're very ambitious. They're very high energy. They're high performing. They are talented in their own right in whatever they're doing. I tend to just, we're all attracted to each other, and we all invite each other into that kind of experience in life.
No, totally. You've always been, especially because we don't have the same interests, but we've been in different times throughout our lives where we've been at similar places because of our interests. And over those times we've learned about, every time we meet, we're at a different place, right? That different transitions have happened. So are you saying that, what you're looking to capture for a lot of this is just kind of share some of those stories of where people have been over the last, few years in their life? And is that kind of, as far as like, everyone is super creative and interesting. And so it's really what you're looking to highlight.
I think it's a little bit, it's even more organic than that.
Okay.
Where I've just been so blessed to know those people, right? And I just look at my entire life and I'm like, man, I know some of the craziest people and like super talented, unique individuals. And the Northwest itself is kind of like its own isolated pocket.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, people on the East Coast just think we're Canada or the other side of the moon. You know what I mean? So like we have our own little bubble, and there's just so many awesome people in it. And I feel really privileged to have had the life that I've had, knowing the people that I've known. But with that being said, the ambitious part, like, it's really fallen away from me through this experience of what I've gone through recently, and the things that have been revealed to me, or at least stripped away, like down to baseline, what are the most important things in my life? And one of those is just like the actual organic, like relational part of it. And so who are the people? Like they've done a lot of cool things, but like people are just people, and people have stories, and it's good to just actually spend time with people and have conversations. I have a friend, Kava, who I did the first one with, and he's the same way as me. Like he's just laser focused, and he sat down and did the same thing, and he's like, yeah, so what's the theme? And I was like, cool, we'll chat about it in a second, and started filming and whatever. And it's like, so there really isn't one. Like, it's just basically to like have a space to breathe and have a conversation to get back to like humanity.
Yeah. No, I like that, because I have so many stories that maybe we'll touch on a few of them today. I'm really excited. So thanks for inviting me to be part of this. And,
for sure.
And what are you calling this series? What does this have a name yet? Is it
sort of
conversations? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly like, I thought it was going to be a main thing. Maybe it's not a main thing. Maybe it's just a supplemental thing. It's very open. I wanted to call it like no agenda, or something, where there's no purpose other than to just chat with people, and then like there's always something cool that bubbles up out of it.
Yeah.
And it was very much a leisurely thing too. When you go so hard, you work, grind, like I forgot how to relax. And I forgot how to like just sit with myself, with other people, to enjoy what we probably used to enjoy before we were so like,
Yeah.
I feel like you're kind of in that space.
I'm super excited to share any of that sort of stuff. So recently I actually retired.
Yeah.
So I hit 40 years old, and I decided that I was going to retire. And it took me 40 years to get there and so much to go along there. So I have so many stories around all of that we could get into. But the last 14 years I worked at Microsoft. That's where I was leading design teams at Microsoft. And so just a little bit of, because we haven't even caught up on any of that.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I
and
know. We kind
yeah,
of know
yeah,
about
we
it.
know about it, but I haven't really shared too much, and,
Yeah,
and
for
not
sure.
a lot of people, and I'm happy to share that with the world.
Because I've just seen you fishing
Yeah.
and like hanging
Yeah,
out, and I'm
yeah.
like, that's the best part of life. Like that's what we should be doing,
Yeah,
dude. So I'm
yeah.
like super happy for you.
I know.
What
So
sparked
I've
it?
been
Obviously, there's
well.
something that sparked it.
So I'm very fortunate. For those that are just tuned in, I'm a designer. That's like my background, and that has been very transformative. As you kind of talked about that early on, all throughout my career, it hasn't been just one type of design, and design can mean so much. And so, I started off actually going to school for design, learning about print design for the most part. There was a little bit of web design back then. So even just 20 years ago, they were still teaching just how to make books and magazines, and digital was
Right.
just kind of starting out. But in my whole career, I've kind of latched on to digital design. That's kind of what I've really personally been excited about. And so that's why even when you and I was thinking about that this morning, have bumped into each other, I was doing stuff with technology and digital and capturing digitally, and you were working physically, and that was like, it was so fun because you were creating and I was creating by a lot of times capturing it and then putting it out into digital formats for people to see. And at that time, you might not even remember this, but there were blogs,
Yeah,
like
well,
little
I mean,
blogs,
even before blogs.
and even
Like,
before
let's
blogs,
go
even
way back.
before blogs. I actually knew you, who now I understand might have been your friend that lived closer to me, because he ran one of the original sites around publishing visual murals,
Yeah,
graffiti.
graffiti,
Yeah,
yeah.
graffiti,
Yeah, hello, he lived over here.
Yeah, and that was super cool. I was very, you were a little bit older, just by a year, but I saw that. I was really inspired that he was doing web and stuff like that. Web was very new at the time. My mom actually started learning about how to do HTML.
Your
And
mom?
my
At the
mom
time?
at the time.
So she was forward.
Yeah,
Like,
so she was forward.
thinking.
Yeah, so she was learning about HTML,
Wow.
hypertext markup language, and at that time, not a lot of people knew HTML. This was before anyone had and before it was easy for anyone to have an online presence of anything.
Yeah.
Like you had to know HTML, which for the time people thought was very complicated. I can tell you now it's much more complicated than just
Sure.
HTML. But what was cool about HTML, and this has a connection to what I'm doing now, which I'll get to in a minute, but with early HTML, it was simple enough that people could learn how to do it. Like I was doing it actually even in middle school, I was doing a little bit, like I was saying, and then in high school I was doing a little bit. And that's what HTML originally was designed to be, was to be an accessible programming language so that information could start being put out onto the internet.
I think we actually started, I think that's how it was called Zero Remorse.
Yeah, Zero
and
Remorse.
So I'm pretty sure we started that in Mr. Wu's class at Stadium, because he was teaching us how to do that.
Makes sense now.
So like we were all like kind of learning from the back
Yeah.
end up of how to build
Yeah.
it, and I think that's how he got started.
That's how he got
doing
started.
it.
Got it.
Because I only cared about making like band flyers and like graffiti collages.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I only cared about that. But he kind of was forward thinking in that too, and he knew kind of some of those things. And so it was like Zero Remorse, and then the other one eventually was the City Slums.
City Slum, yeah.
So,
So I think that's so interesting because we also have that connection through technology. as well.
Goes way back.
Yeah, it goes way back. And so yeah, my background is really, I just stuck with doing web design and really kind of didn't do too much print and really started doing websites for a lot of small businesses. I first started working up in Seattle, and I got to do, I did some work for Beecher's Cheese, a cheese company up there, some really early online stores for these companies. And so at that time, you have to kind of remember back, it wasn't that long ago, but having an online store, not everyone had one.
Right.
And so they were like one of the first cheese companies. I helped, bring them an online store to sell cheese, and that was like a first. And I worked on a really cool project with Zoomies, the skate brand at the time. And again, this was very early. This was when I was getting, man, I'm jumping it forward, but this was after I graduated from college and stuff, and I had my first job. But I did a website for Zoomies, which let people come into the Zoomies store and apply for a job seasonally. And you have to realize, and this is where I realized just how powerful the stuff that I create is. How it was working before I created this website was, they told me they literally would have people come into their stores, fill out documentation, one day overnight it to DC. Someone would have to look it over, go over it, and one night it back, and it would just cost millions of dollars.
For just a kid to work in a store?
Yeah, just a kid to work in the store.
That's crazy.
And that's when it was really eye-opening to me around how there's going to be this like surge in what are now called web applications. So it went kind of from a normal website, like we call them brochure websites, where they're very simple, just information, to people trying to figure out how to do web applications like online stores or ways to bring their business to sort of, be more streamlined through, a website. And so I was, at the time, I wasn't even 21. I worked on that. I was 20 years old, and I just finished that project, and Zoomies took us out to a steak dinner, and we're like, thank you so much. You guys are saving us millions of dollars. And I'm like, whoa, like that's so cool. Something that I design, software, online software, is creating so much impact for them, and helping people get hired faster. Like that's also, that was a big thing. And so that really got me energized about working more on websites and tools on the web that helped individuals and businesses do something with their process, improve it some sort of way.
Right.
And so I worked a few years there, worked on some really cool stuff, and then I was at a conference and I met a team down from Tacoma. They're actually they're called Site Crafting, and they are now the largest web and design company in South Puget Sound.
Wow.
And again, I was very young, and the owner, his name is Brian Forth, really gave me a chance because I'm now a lot more people do it. When I started, not as many people were doing it, and so I feel he took a chance on me, and it was really cool because I helped grow his business to offer design. His business originally just offered development, and so they would partner with a lot of design firms. I came in and I actually created a whole design department. I hired designers.
Wow.
I created design process, and so when people come in, they had a great experience. They met the team. We talked about the project, what they needed to achieve, what what their goals were, and then we collaborated on that site, that application, and I did that for 4 years, and we grew from 12 to 30, which was amazing, and we also opened an office in Spokane, and I was doing some really fun things, flying for the first time for business, which as a young guy was really, really exciting. But again, like as you said, like with transformation, and that's really what I'm also about, as far as like seeing what's ahead and learning about it, and I saw the next thing. So again, I saw the web apps, mobile was coming around.
Oh, yeah.
And man, that was just super exciting. The iPhone, all the Blackberries. And so I'd seen that happening not at my company. That unfortunately, where I was at, we weren't getting those sort of jobs. A lot of those jobs were getting picked up by companies in Seattle at the time. Not that our team couldn't do it. It's just that's where people were putting their money to sort of invest in that. And I was like, man, I really want to figure out how I can do more stuff for the phone. I think that is just really cool. And I applied for a contract at Microsoft at the time. And they called me, they brought me in, I had an interview, and they told me, so when you go in for an interview like this, they don't, sometimes they'll tell you what you're working on, but they didn't really tell me too much what I'd be working on other than it was this web application. And so then when I went in for the interview, I learned more about it, and I would be working on this thing that was very new at the time called Office 365. And Office 365 was their push into taking desktop Office like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and putting it into the web instead of it having to be just on a CD. And so you could access it wherever you had internet access.
So the umbrella cloud structure of everything.
Yeah. And I was like, I know that's going to be big. I'm like, that is going to be big. And I'm already doing web apps right now. And, I'm working for the city of Tacoma, so people can pay their bills and stuff like that. And I'm like, I know that this is going to be a big thing. So I got a call back. They hired me. Yeah. And I started working there, and I did really well. I mean, a lot of the skills that I had from working at that other company, I actually brought to Microsoft. So making it easier for design teams and engineering teams to work together through different processes I've come up with. And now it sounds simple, but it's like stage reviews or how to spec up things in a certain way so that an engineer can take it and code it. Like I came up with, many other people in my team came up with the first ways to do that, to make collaboration a lot easier between the two.
Which is super cool.
Yeah.
Because like you're describing the actual evolution of the tech itself, but like human beings are the ones that are like creating that and growing it, and then everything underneath that supports it, the columns and foundation, is like those things, processes, human processes of like how to interface with each other, how to interface with whatever,
Yeah.
So you're not just building tech, you're building the entire foundation of humanity to support it and build it going forward in real time.
Right.
Which is crazy to think about too.
It's and that's what, I think, everyone has many superpowers, but I think, one of them for me is just, and I learned a lot of that just through a few jobs before around building those relationships and having those and listening and adjusting and working together. And that's what a lot of my career has been. And then as I got older in my career, it was kind of wild. I was always the youngest, and then it just happened I was the oldest. And so and I'm teaching that more. So I sort of, as I became a manager at Microsoft, as I eventually, evolved as a manager, I became more of helping newer designers succeed in the company and helping foster them and keeping them inspired, just as I was when I was, younger. As I had bosses that helped keep me energized, and I just grew those skills as far as like how to and see like what are the things that excite them, because I've always found that if you give people that room to work on the things that they're excited about, they will always create the best stuff. And so I've always been good at like talking with people about that and seeing where to push and pull and helping like people have a good time in their experience, because being a designer in a large corporation, I will share that is not like when I first started design. My perspective of being a designer when I first started, and it was like this at some companies when I first started, was that you could come into work late, and like sometimes you work late, sometimes you don't. You're just having fun all the time. You're doing Nerf guns and stuff like that. But where it turns into a lot of times at larger corporations is you do have an objective to get people to use the software, spend money, stuff like that. And it's very, there's a lot of business, and you're working with a lot of business people. And so as a principal design manager, I sort of filled that role to like help bridge then even business with creativity and design. And so making sure that like stuff that people, the design team especially who created, like they were enjoying doing it and being inspired and stuff like that. And
that seems like a very natural evolution for a lot of things, because creatives are not, I mean, you get rare ones who are 50-50 left and right brain, right? But like most creatives just so heavy on the right brain where it's like, it's just a frat party. You know what I mean? It's fun, but then like the right brain people, the bureaucracy people need all this structure, and then they need to like, keep this thing going. And so like bridging those worlds can be challenging as a business grows. And especially as the business becomes so much bigger and has so much more invested into it, it has to continue to return. And like, I could see how that just kind of starts to dwindle. And like people get put in little pockets.
Yeah, I mean, as a designer, you're like, what are the, I mean, it's just even simple things now when you work at a large company, performance reviews and stuff like that. They have these business processes that just a large corporation has. And I felt a lot of what my job and why people liked working for me was that I helped. They had to do it, but I helped them, work through still being a creative person. Like they didn't have to like lose that, and so we kind of worked through that as a design team to just kind of check off the boxes of sometimes of just the corporate stuff that has to happen. For a corporation to run.
Right.
So that we could still have these cool design studios within a large corporation.
That's good.
Yeah. So I had a team that worked for me at the largest. I had a team of 5, and it just kind of things change as you work on different things. But I was one of the original designers of OneDrive, which is Microsoft's cloud storage application, and
it's phenomenal.
It's one of their biggest, it's one of their biggest products. I feel very fortunate that I kind of was able to work on that, but I also worked on a lot of really other cool products that help the world. I've worked on Microsoft Project. They use that software at Boeing to build airplanes. I've worked on they call it Microsoft Planner, which was it's called Kanban. So think of that as a very lightweight way in which you can move sticky notes across a process. I've worked on a thing. It didn't even make it. It was really interesting. I learned that sometimes I work on stuff and it doesn't even make it to the world. But I worked on a to-do app at Microsoft, one of the first mobile apps, which was really cool, learning about gestures on the mobile phone, because again, the phone was so new just a few years ago that people were still learning about what you could do by swiping your finger across a surface digitally, and coming up with that design and that interaction. And so we're coming up with really fun design interactions around swiping things to say it's deleted or complete and stuff like that. And so
that would be like how would you put it, like the ergonomics, the neural ergonomics of how something flows.
Just really just the usability.
Usability.
We were coming up with the usability, and I was very fortunate. I was at Microsoft for 14 years. So, like I told you, I worked on Office 365. That was just the web at the time, but then that evolved to the new version of Windows, which lets you touch the screen. That was new a few years ago. It's hard to believe, but you used to not have any computer where you could touch the screen. And so I got to help with others figure out what's the best way in which you can use a computer that you can use a mouse, a keyboard, and touch at the same time. And sometimes you might not want to use just the mouse and keyboard. You might want to just use it. And so how does the experience evolve? Understanding whether or not you plug things in, or even having enough space around certain elements so that you could use your finger if you wanted to, and it would work.
Do you have like I don't know what the right word is, but like use like guinea pigs for that? Because I feel like, so for me, we have one in our office, right? It's just a like, mouse, keyboard, but it's also touchscreen, right?
Yeah.
And I like almost rarely ever use the touchscreen. Almost never. But that's because I guess I'm an old guy with computer and technology, right? My kid, she'll touch that screen all the time and like use it. And so I'm thinking, what is it different about you and your own organic intuitions that drive you to use this versus what we're used to? Is it just training? Is it just what we grew up knowing?
Yeah,
If we had to start all over again, would I probably just keep tapping the screen?
No, it's a good question. I think early on when everyone was figuring it out, like when this technology came out, like you have to realize that it wasn't just Microsoft. It was everyone building software was trying to figure out, how are people going to use it now that they have this technology? How are they going to use it? And there were many people that believed strongly that, you got touch, you're just going to use touch. But they quickly found there were other independent research firms. I remember one off the top of my head though from Intel that basically shared that it will just be more efficient sometimes to use your finger in some experiences versus others, and sometimes it will be more efficient to use the keyboard and mouse in other things. And so it's it depends so much on application, you as a person, and that's what was special about like learning how to do this, because I had to design software where it had to work for you and it had to work for your daughter with touch. And there was a time there where people didn't believe that, and what I mean by that is there were applications that just released that just you had to use your finger, and you'd be bummed out because you have a keyboard and you like using the keyboard, and so we evolved in our thinking and we learned that it's okay. They can all work together.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might want to use more of this, but sometimes you might, have a busted arm over here and you might want to just tap, sure. You had a slight injury or something, or you're older. There definitely is information out there with age where touch isn't as easy for you, and it's easier to have hardware, and then take that even further. There is special hardware for other people to make it even more accessible, and that was another evolution of what I had to learn in the job, was to create software that was accessible for everyone in the world.
That's incredible.
And that wasn't something that was, when I first started, it wasn't something that everyone made sure was possible.
Yeah.
And the CEO at the time, Satya Nadella, did a mandate, and it's because it's the right thing, that we needed to design software that was accessible for low vision, colorblind, everything, because technology should be accessible to everybody. That's the right thing, And so it's so cool because I got to learn about voiceover. I didn't know these weren't things that they taught in school. Totally. These were things that were all developing, even while we're figuring out how to make it accessible for all these people.
And that's a crazy point to think about, because we're now 40, right? Like at the beginning of the developing of all this stuff, you were in your 20s, right? We don't think about it. What I am thinking about currently is my wife's grandfather, who's 90, and he's lost mobility in, he used to type emails, and now he doesn't really do that so much. But he can actually tap his phone to maybe the fingers don't work for keyboard stuff, but he can tap it and make a phone call, or maybe tap it and do a voice thing, or he can drag his finger across the screen and make something happen. And so you don't think about that, because I'm not 90. I haven't lost the dexterity in any of my limbs yet, or anytime soon, hopefully. But we don't think about that. And that's fascinating that you have to actually run those thought processes to think about all the variables when you're not in that position. Right. That's a lot of imagination.
It is, yeah. And I think something I was as you were talking about that, and you were talking about your daughter, what you're seeing is that we grew up with technology when it was at a certain point, and so we learned some of those mental models. And then your daughter now is growing up in a new part of technology, and she's learning about mental models earlier because they weren't around when we were first doing it. And so that connects to a lot of kind of where I'm headed with some of the new technology that I've been up to. So recently actually it's already been over 3 years, but I started exploring more around virtual worlds and the metaverse. And like I said, like I did a lot of website design, but I've personally gotten a little bit tired of just kind of doing normal websites. I've kind of now been looking at like, well, what excites me more than just creating a website for a person? And I've come to learn that I really enjoy creating, I call it the metaverse. An easier way to think about it is, another way is like a 3D website. And I've been creating a lot of those and working with different artists to do things like galleries in the virtual world, or even performing music in the virtual world. So that's really what I've found really exciting as of late. And what's really interesting about that, it also connects to accessibility, is that it does make some of these shows that I do more accessible for people to come and check out new art or go to a show. And what I've been trying to figure out lately is to show people how it's not this or that. I think that kind of also like help people see that it's not like, if there's a virtual show happening, it doesn't mean that it only has to happen virtually. And I'm trying to create more experiences where I bring the two together, the real life and the virtual world, so that they can see each other. And that's a newer concept that not very many people are doing. I'm kind of on the forefront of that. I think we've had a lot of people doing shows in the virtual world where it's just everyone has to be in the virtual world, but I'm now doing and working to do shows, like I said, where I create a portal between the two. And it's been really cool because I've been working with a few music people. One person in particular I'll mention, his name is Mari Based One. He's from Seattle. I met him I actually had a pop-up talking about doing metaverse stuff in Seattle. I was doing another show there. I met him, and he was metaverse ready. He saw how by setting up a portal at one of his shows, he could now go from local to global. He saw that immediately. And so we did a show. He performed in Alki, and we set one up. And for him, I think that moment that was really eye-opening was when he saw that there were more people experiencing his show in the metaverse than in person. And so that is something that's been getting me really excited lately, is finding people that want to experiment, aren't afraid of technology, and it's natural to always be afraid of future technology. Like as we kind of think back, like people were afraid of email, and they thought, that was crazy. Why would you use email when you could just go to the post office? I'm never gonna. What are you kidding?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when cars came out and people were like, "You're not gonna ride horses anymore," people were like,
right,
"We're gonna burn this town to the ground."
So I find it's been cool. So now that I'm retired, like I really get to spend, and I really get to focus my time on finding people that are excited by that, other people that are excited by that, and working with them and exploring it together, and finding those people that realize that like they're pioneers. We're pioneers, and so we are figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And like for sure, you read different news headlines of people being excited about it, not being excited about it, but I like right now to help people understand that it's just another part of the internet. That's all that what I'm doing is,
for sure.
In these virtual worlds, and I think that's what people like are starting to see now. It's getting to the point where they're starting to see that it's not like the stuff that I'm doing is like you have to live in a virtual world. I think that's where people got really scared. But but it's like you can go in and out, just like you can go in and out on any app on your phone.
Sure.
and
Totally.
stuff like that, you know?
Well, okay, so yeah. So before we dive into this, this
Yeah.
is like a whole like subject that like we could probably just run the rest of this out on. But before we dive into it, like I just want you to be able to like kind of vocalize
Sure.
some of your experience and transition of what you say retire and what that actually means. Like there was a life before that you feel like you had, it was obsolete, you had expired, and then there's this new life and these new endeavors you want to take on, right? And you had fears around it, I'm sure. You had other things. You went through that whole experience. So like, you know, you mentioned some of the intent is like, hey, I want to do this thing. Like I want to work towards this thing. But there's a lot of people who do get to transition and they don't know what's coming next. Like you had vision and forethought and you're thinking and you're seeing it. You got a path. There's people that aren't. They just don't know what's coming next and they don't know how to like get out of the thing that's obsolete. So like maybe just speak on like how you came to oh, okay, I think this is where I want to go. Like I'm ready to do this, and then like what it's like been in the middle, and then like, hey, here's the progression and momentum forward.
Yeah. So I mean, I believe anybody can transition and change, and so I, you know, the first thing I would say is that if you don't think that that's possible, you should just tell yourself that it is possible, you know, and you do have to though understand with where you want to go. Like that will make it easier for you to figure out what that transition looks like. So identifying that. Working on it a little bit. That's you know, if I was to give advice, I would say, you know, it's not always fast, but incrementally and consistency. And it's not always a straight line. Like you might have to pivot. But if you truly do have that idea in which you want to do it, you can always achieve it. It's just you do have to put time and energy and focus and work on it. But for me, like it was learning. It was a lot. It was always about just like studying. So it's like I didn't know how to do stuff like my first job. I didn't know 100% how to do certain things in code, and so I picked up a book or I read online and I studied it and you know, I did practice doing a lot of hobby projects. Like that was kind of how I helped tune it. You know, like learning through practice. And so for me, at least in the career arc that I've had, it always was understanding what was next, seeing what was next, being really excited about it, and then practicing it to the point where I had something to show others that I could do it.
Okay.
You know, that was what worked for me.
And I feel most people, like when you see somebody that transitions from one space in life to the next, and you catch them further down the road in the second part of their journey or whatever, you often forget that like there wasn't a gap in the middle, it had just overlapped. Like they were still doing the old thing, but they were also beginning the new thing a little bit ahead of where they were, and one just kind of disappeared as the other.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's just like with just you know, in corporate world where, you know, you're trying to get that next position, and they often will tell you that they promote based on you performing at that level. You know, it's kind of similar in that, you know, you kind of have to be doing those sort of skills before you get there. You know, but retirement. So for me, retirement meant my decision was to end doing a 9-to-5 job. That was my main thing with retirement. Was I reached a point where the amount of energy that I was putting into going to 9-to-5, it was great. It was awesome. Everything about it was really great. The people, everything, benefits, money, everything like that. But I found that, thankfully, because of the job and everything that I put in as far as, you know, working at a company with like benefits and stuff like that, like I found that I didn't, how would I put this? I would say that like I was making more money through what I'd been doing with the money that I earned uh, that I didn't need to have that job anymore. I kind of transitioned into a different point financially that the amount of hours that I was working at a job, I was making less being there than what I was doing outside of the job.
Good for you.
Yeah, yeah. And
Good
so that was what made it easy
Yeah.
to retire. It that would be the easiest way, in my opinion, for people that want to retire is like you look to figure out how do you replace the job that you currently have, with and for me was coming up with a way through investing that I can make more money while I sleep than being at the job during the day.
That's awesome. Good
Yeah.
for you. Because a lot of us haven't figured that out.
No,
And there's
no.
I think you're like in the smaller bracket of people that, have gone there. And then there's a lot of people like that are just not there.
Yeah.
So good for you.
And I learned that. There's many principles I've learned from different books, but one that really struck me from a gentleman's book. His name is Grant Cardone.
Mm-hmm.
He's a real estate investor, but he came up with a book called the 10X or the 10X something, and he had a point in there which really stuck with me, which was to get rich, you have to come up with a way of where you're making money while you sleep, and that's what I learned. Right, I learned everything. Online stores. That's now you not having to open your door at a retail business. You're sleeping while people are buying stuff. Like everything that I've done is about, figuring out ways where that thing can happen while you're asleep or without you having to be there for it.
Awesome.
And so it wasn't like I couldn't work more.
Sure.
Like that was like I could have worked there 20 more years, but I realized that I want to try seeing what if I was to put 100% of my time into whatever I want to do. And often what I've learned is like people will ask you like, well, what's that project you're working on? And so even the thing that I just described to you around what I'm doing in the metaverse right now, that's not like a new job for me. That is something that I decided that if I'm going to put time to working with anybody on anything in that project, like that's me blessing a person with my information and my time, and because I know that us working together could create something that like has never been done before. Like that's really how I look at that type of work that I'm doing now, and that that is really exciting to me. Really with retirement for me right now, you have to realize that I'd been working since I was 20 years old. I'm now 40 nonstop, and I wanted to see what not having a schedule is like in retirement, and so I'm not looking to just do freelance stuff or anything like that. I'm actually looking to put a pause and being really mindful each day of where I spend my time and energy and with who, and connecting with friends and people that I like. Yeah.
Very intentional.
Yeah.
No, that's incredible because the value system has been recalibrated.
Right.
So really, if you think about it, that's all we kind of have in this life is like just the moments and presence we have. Like in the actual now, like everything else is just history or like something that hasn't happened yet. So like all we really actually have is the moment. And that's the most valuable, man. Like that's really crazy.
Yeah.
So good for you.
I learned a lot. Yeah, I learned a lot about that.
What was the hard part? Let me ask you this. What was like, you mentioned like, oh, okay, this made it easier to like do this. Like, what was the hard part for you? What's been the hard part for you?
I think so even with saying I'm retired, there's always going to be a that thought of like, well, what if it doesn't work out? Mm-hmm. So that's hard to think about a little bit, but I also I'm also excited that like if it doesn't work out in a few years, like it's okay, because I feel at 40 years old that I'm not old. And so it can always keep, like you
Sure.
said, transforming and being something else. And so,
yeah.
the hardest thing I think was, well, I'm a married man now, and so just kind of probably sharing some of that with the family, that this is what I was going to do, and just making it really clear that it's okay, and kind of making sure that was in order, because, like you said, not a lot of people know other people that have, like, when people often think of a person that is retired, they're well into the past their 60s usually, 60s, and maybe one day the government will make you retire at 90. We'll see. We'll see.
Hopefully it goes the other way and it's younger, not older.
So, it has, of course, fear of did I made it so high up in Microsoft, or at this company, like, is that going to be detrimental to a future career or something like that? But I know myself, and I know where I've been and how smart and transformative and just how passionate I am about design technology, that I don't have that much fear around it. And I'm not disconnected. I'm I'm always learning and always, like, doing stuff around what I'm already doing, but for fun or with, like, special people. So I'm already ahead of kind of what's even out there. I'm always gonna have one foot in the future. I'm from the future.
No,
So.
I know, dude. I know. That's amazing, dude, because, like, that can be a very challenging thing. And for me personally, and due to my history, like, one of my great fears and it's a limiting belief that holds me back from the things that I guess I could move into the future doing, is definitely that, we call it a structure. It's a structure mentality, right? So, like, personal information, like my first family, my parents, the first family, right? Family of origin. And then my first career, which was going to be the military, like, it all imploded at 18. I almost passed away, et cetera, et cetera. And I had to, like, start at zero, at scratch, right? And I had many years of addiction and floating around and all these other issues. But eventually, like, I clawed my way out of it, and I got into school. I got into the trades, and I built slowly a job, and I managed to hold on to work, and then transition into a company that was a startup and help build this company. And now I'm very comfortable there, right? You're the same place. You get to this place where you're very comfortable, you're very established, you make, more than enough money to, like, sustain, and then you're like, okay, I've made it here. And I fought so darn hard at the scratch, like, literally nothing. I don't want to implode that thing and go back here, because I remember how painful and gnarly that was. If it was just me, yeah, whatever. I'd sleep in a mattress in a bed of a truck. But, like, now I've got others. Mm-hmm. And that is, like, that's super challenging, man. So, like, that's one of my limiting beliefs and fears, is, like, dude, I've, like, now built this. Like, what, you just gonna throw it all away? So, like, that's very hard for, I think, most people, is they've built something so massive that they're like, it's okay to let it die now. It's okay to let it go, because something new that's coming is going to be even better. And that's a lot of faith, and there's a lot of fear around that. So good for you getting to that point where you're just like, it's fine to, like, let it go.
But it was you would do the same. You would calculate the risk. You wouldn't do it blindly. Like, if you were to make it, like you said, now that you have these other obligations,
sure.
Just because you see something fun and shiny,
right?
And that's how I think about things. It's a calculated risk in each of those decisions of whether or not it would be worth it. That's how I think of those things.
And there's patience. Like, with our age now, like, you see a little bit more patience than if you were, like, 18 and you're like, right. I just want to do this.
Yeah. But it's not like you can't do that. It's just, and that's okay, because you have other amazing things in your life, and so you can decide what that piece of the puzzle looks like, and when it grows and when it doesn't grow, like, and it can evolve every year, and that's to bring it back to, like, my retirement. It's every year, every few months, it's going to be different. I don't, like, this month I'm fishing, like you said. The next month I'm working with some artists on something. And I think with anything, you should decide, and you should look at if it's, doing what you want it to do, adding that value in your life or not, and then you just decide what you want to do next.
And you just explore it.
Yeah, explore it and have fun but yeah, I mean, sometimes it's not as fast. You can't. There were people, of course, that have talked with me and they wanted to get into what I do, and it's not, you can't get into what I do, but I had to share that I put in a lot of time in learning, and there weren't even classes teaching it what I was doing at the time, and so sometimes people don't like hearing that. It does sometimes take time. Might mean you have to go back to school, or you might have to learn from someone, or you might have to self-study on top of whatever else you're doing.
And that can probably be hard for this generation.
Yeah.
And I don't know, because I'm not in the tech world, right? But I'm assuming that field, the timeline of reality can seem skewed because it's such an innovation-driven industry where the rollover of time is so fast that the idea that you have to create a life that takes time, I feel like that probably just messes with your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I went to Seattle Central for graphic design, like I mentioned, and a lot of the people, when I was I was the youngest, and a lot of the people that were there were, this was their second career. A lot of people were older in the program that I was in, and they were looking to transition to graphic design and stuff like that.
When you were in your 20s?
When I was in my 20s.
When you were younger?
Yeah,
Okay.
So I was actually in college. I was 20 years old. Yeah, I finished around 20 years old. Many of the other people in the class that I graduated with were in their 30s already.
Wow.
Some were in their 40s. And so that showed me that, sometimes you might have to come back to school to learn some of the new things that are out there. And I think that, what's interesting I've learned too is that now that what I do is more popular, meaning schools teach it, with time, there are more people that can get educated on it. Sure. Because of the maturity of technology. Sure. And so that's why I always try to be ahead of it, where they're not teaching it in school yet, mm-hmm. Or I'm creating the technology. I created how to share a link to a file. Like that's kind of probably odd to hear in that way, but right. I actually designed that experience of when you're in Word and you want to work on it with a friend, mm-hmm. that whole experience, I came up with that. And
here's my podcast, insert link, goes to website.
Yeah, and coming up with whether or not you can have a password on it or an expiration so that your friend loses access and stuff like that.
That's actually really crazy, because that's something that we all do now.
Now you do.
And it's just such a normal activity that it'd be like, hey friends, I'm talking to the guy that invented brushing teeth, because it's such a normal activity, and right. You don't think about it, but that's a profound. Because dude, a thesis paper. Good heavens! You used to have resource cards, and you have your bibliography in the back. Nowadays, those links are just inserted throughout the paper.
Right.
And you're the guy that helped them do that.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
phenomenal.
Yeah, and so and that's always been something that has been really exciting. Like I said, it's coming up with experiences that help people achieve more, do more, collaborate.
Yeah.
And I have patents for it, so it's proven. I have 3 patents in the U.S. In the U.S. Patent Office, and 2 in the European Union for sharing related stuff as well as other things that I've designed with people, and that was exciting.
Dude,
For the
good
first
on you
time.
for that as well,
that was
dude.
cool.
Extra
that was cool.
kudos for
That
getting
was
some
cool.
patents, man.
Yeah,
Good for you.
That was cool. That was a first.
Awesome.
And it relates similar to like kind of the stuff that what I like about, if you want to go that direction, the blockchain, in that there's kind of proof in that it happened, because early digital stuff that I worked on, as we talk about web and stuff like that, some of it I can't point to. Even the projects you work, like, you can't even point to it anymore.
Yes.
And that's what, software, and then the patent, and then now the blockchain. That's what got me even more excited, because those are ways in which it's sort of stamped in that it actually happened historically. And yeah, I'm super proud of the patents and the projects that I work on with people now that are on a blockchain, meaning that they're stamped into the world, and everyone can see that it exists.
Dude, that is actually extremely cool for moving forward in this part of the conversation, but also like in life. One thing that I started really seeing as such an incredible asset to artists, at least speaking as a visual artist and like my own artwork, not just for my artwork, but for my life in general. I'm a big history kind of guy, historian, but legacy. My family, we have a very well documented history in my family tree, and we have historical relics from like Civil War, like, back through history, right? And so when I think about the future, I think about that, like what kind of legacy items am I leaving for my daughter and our future generations, and how do I protect it and secure that as like a fixed thing moving forward. So for the thing with AI, the conversation of AI, and that, like, there's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of like things you can change. Blockchain, stamped, like we can't change that. Like you can manipulate moving forward, but you cannot manipulate this, right? So for me, it's like, oh, I would like to have a piece of artwork. Or for instance, like we're having this conversation, and in 150 years, my third great grandchild is like watching me have a conversation, full-blown conversation. And it can be so crazy as we get to a point with some of these holographic projections of people, maybe the history of that person and their personality, you can remove the other person and they can sit and talk to their fourth or fifth great grandparent about the things that they have in their life and the things that they've done. Again, scary part is with AI, like, hey, can we come back and manipulate this person so they can change the history? Blockchain is fixed. You can't fix these different things and change that. So like, that's how I see some of the legacy moving forward and things that would be cool to create. Mm-hmm. Like this digital Library of Alexandria kind of thing from like history that can't be burned, can't be changed, can't go away, but future generations can interact with.
Yeah. No, I think one thing that really excited me about blockchain and seeing you explore it as well, it connected with what really excited me. So a story that I'll share is that I actually had some art that was stolen in my apartment, and that was it. It was stolen, and it just was gone at that point for me. Yeah. And I found that if I were to buy, and this technology will evolve, and it will continue to evolve, but I could buy what was called a NFT, a non-fungible token of a piece of art, and that if I were to have a house fire, or if I were to have someone break into my house, they might be able to take it, but I could sort of reproduce it, or I could still have it digitally on a surface. And that really excited me for collecting art of artists, because of what I learned from loss.
Yeah.
And so I began collecting digital art through NFTs. I actually started out with Shepard Fairey. Some of his, he was experimenting in it, and I thought that was really. So I've always found his work. I grew up with Shepard Fairey, so I grew up. He was a graphic designer a few years, older than me, and I saw all the work that he did around stickering and stuff. And so I just loved all that stuff. And so the fact that he came out with a NFT that I could afford, I was like, yeah, that's really cool. Let me buy one. And so I bought one, and I love seeing that connection that I bought it from him through the blockchain.
Yes.
Truly showed that I supported that artist.
Yes, ownership.
And it came from him.
Yeah.
And you could try, and you know what? If my computer got stolen, I could go on and get up another computer, and I could log into my wallet, and it would still be there.
Yes.
And I learned about how that was amazing, and then I learned about how now I have this relationship with the artist in which, if he wanted to, he could gift things to me. And there were times around Christmas where all of a sudden I had a special piece of art from that artist because we now had that connection. I'd sort of bought something his, and then just giving back to his community gave me something. Cool. And that then connected me to another thing which I love doing is learning about art and going to galleries. And another connection we have is going to the different art walks up in Seattle. And I found that I could then take those NFTs and those digital works and bring them now into a virtual space in which I could see them at whatever scale I wanted to grow them up as. And then if I wanted to, I don't have to, I could put on a virtual headset and then see them even in higher fidelity. But I could also look at it on my phone, and that just really got me excited about how artists had begun experimenting with using the blockchain. And I started, working with other artists and teaching them about how other artists are doing that. And I got to work with, his name is Greg Mishka. He runs Mishka, which is a really cool brand that originally started in New York and is now in LA. And he wanted to come up with the first digital wearable shirt. So his brand is very well known. They have a sort of an eyeball design. That's what they're most known about. And he wanted to bring it to the digital world for the first time. And so I got to work with him and help guide him through that process. And then that grew. Actually, I brought some fun stuff to talk about. We can talk about it, but that grew to a really fun thing. And again, this is all just learning with the person about what could be achieved. And so I made a connection through All-Star Vintage and Rio from Throwbacks Northwest. They were working on an event with Sean Kemp, the Olympic basketball player Sean Kemp. Yeah. And I met him one day, and I told him about what I was doing in the virtual world. And he is a very visionary person, as I learned from talking with him. And he said, I want to be in the metaverse. And I said, okay, we'll make it happen. And we worked together very quickly within a month, and we brought, for the first time ever, a Sean Kemp digital jersey into existence. Yeah. And I'm like I said, I'm always trying to come up with ways to make this technology accessible to people and help them connect with it. And so I designed a digital jersey which has a NFC chip on it. So if you were to take your iPhone and hold it up to it, it would help you teleport into a room in which you can try on the jersey. And again, I'm really interested in working on really special things. And so we only created 40 of these. This is super rare based on
the 40.
Yeah, his number. His number.
Nice touch,
yeah. So we only did 40, and then he was super excited, and so this jersey is in the real world extremely popular, and I'm really excited to have been able to work with Sean Kemp to help bring his jersey to the virtual world. And
That's awesome, dude.
you know, there's only 40 of those, and
That's
then
so cool.
you know, something really fun is that we did 8 just for the people that are these are never put on to the public sale.
Yeah.
So only a small group of people have these right now, and 8 of them are actually signed in gold by Sean Kemp
That's
himself.
sick.
And
Wow.
this is really cool because this connects to the blockchain, because I sent it to have it graded by PSA, and they sent it back to me, and they said that they couldn't verify it. And that's what the funniest thing is that if they were to look about and learn about the blockchain, they could have seen that it was real, but they put no work into it. And so that's what another example of what I think the blockchain is beautiful about is you won't have to go to some third-party company to say whether or not it's legit just because they didn't spend more than 15 minutes to figure out that it's real.
That is so hilarious. Yeah, because I was sitting here and it's like no grade, and you're explaining it, and I'm like, this does not make sense. Like, that is so
Yeah.
comical.
So I left it on there because I think it's super cool that you know, they couldn't grade it, but if they were to do some time, they would see me high-fiving Sean Kemp, or you know, could have gotten a letter.
They like
from
literally did no investigation
Yeah,
and
yeah.
no like research whatsoever. That is beautiful, dude. Like, and that's, you know, the NFC thing is super cool. I have a friend of mine who's an artist, and he has them in his paintings, like
cool.
inside. And he uses them for like, oh, it goes straight to my website, it goes straight to the pay portal, blah, blah, blah. And my head's always been like, I want them there to blockchain for ownership, right? Like you can transfer ownership, title, all the information, and it will follow that painting wherever. And even at some point, when the painting or whatever piece of artwork decays and disappears, the fact of ownership still remains and will always remain, and the investment in it will always remain. And that can follow somebody forever. You know,
Right.
it's like owning gold, and you never even have the gold anymore. You just have the fact that you had ownership and that money and everything that was invested in it just continuing on in the future. And it's like it's almost like not even based on anything anymore real. It's just it just exists still. And that's really fascinating. That's a fascinating thing to think about. That wealth and like ownership and whatever else, it can continue on without.
Right.
That's a really crazy
And we
thing.
talked, and you know, originally when I was talking to Sean Kemp about this, you know, I'm teaching him about these concepts, and he totally connected, like you said, to legacy and how this proves the legacy. And now, in the future, when other people go to do this, you can always refer to the blockchain and see that he did it first.
For sure.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the golden thread of history is not done either. Like, the
No.
Sonics will come back eventually, and like these things are going to be even more like sought after. They're going to be, those stories do need to be told, and they're not forgotten, and that legacy piece can follow it through that arc of history into the future, which is really cool.
Yeah, he really also liked, as I was telling him about what I've been doing with the galleries, he really liked that idea around creating museums. And so we started piecing together a small little museum for him so that, you know, he may not always be around with us, but people can always learn about his legacy through the virtual world and explore it.
Through his archives.
And so, yeah, so that was something that he really found was cool about the work that I'm doing in the virtual world as well.
Absolutely. And you're spot on with that, because that's all I think about with this. It's like I don't even think about any like collectible, any real piece of artwork. I'm just like history, legacy, ownership, documentation, like just move that forward so that others can experience it, you know? Because I mean, it'd have been fascinating to have, like, you could just open your device and then like, here's a couple guys from, you know, 2,000 years ago in Rome having a conversation. You'd be like, oh my gosh, like this is incredible. Like listening to them, watching them. Nowadays, we only have like 100 years ago, but still you watch black and white film from 100 years ago and you're like, whoa, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. And now that they're colorizing it and digitally remastering it, it's like, it brings those people to life and their stories come to life and you begin to see history in a different way.
Yeah.
And without that, it's like we're so lost of who we are. There's a story of us that doesn't get told, and it's not integrated within us, and it doesn't color our lives in the future, and our future generations, I think, will have that, and it can change that for them moving forward.
Right.
You know.
And I was just thinking too about how with blockchain it actually makes it for some easier to release, like as an artist, to release your stuff into the world. For example, when I tried to buy a Shepherd Fairy painting in the past, I went down to a gallery in Seattle, and I had to talk with the person that ran the gallery and negotiate on a price. But I really thought it has been cool interacting directly with the artist and learning even what they think it is fair to sell it as, and getting it for that. Very transparent. That's the whole point of the blockchain, is that it's all very transparent. And you don't need people to be in between you and that person to make an exchange.
Yeah.
You make the purchase using, for example, Ethereum. It kicks off that contract, and then within a few minutes, it's in your wallet and it's yours. And then you can decide, like you said, to sell it if you want. And it's very easy to do that. And I think that pushes artists to really understand and think about what is the thing that they're putting out there. Think harder about what they put out there, because it's not free to put it on the blockchain.
Yeah.
And so I think what I'm seeing is that artists are really spending more time in thinking through, because it's going to be there forever, what they put on the blockchain. Not to dilute it. These are all things that people are thinking about, and I think that's been really fun to see that.
Let me ask you this. What are the stumbling blocks, or what are the challenges of the accessible part of this? Where, like, if I go in there and I say, "Hey, Kate, I want you to go buy this on the blockchain," she's going to look at you and just blink for a while, right? Like, for us who have spent a lot of time in it, like, we're a little bit more educated. It's like we can navigate.
Right.
If I ask her to go buy a Stanley cup on Amazon, she's gonna one click buy it, and it'll be here tomorrow morning. Right. Like, so, or maybe later today. So, like, there are things that maybe haven't developed yet with this that what do you call it? Time crunch or accessibility crunch. Like, what are the things that it's gonna take to get to that point with some of this blockchain technology?
Right.
Some of that stuff.
Like you said, the people that are doing it kind of right now are the pioneers.
Yes.
And even all of early internet, accessing it wasn't always easy. Like, sometimes you had to go to the library, or sometimes you had to know a little bit of how to log in through a terminal to access it. And so all technology has a point in which it's not easily understood by the general population. And so, but I'm excited to see that. Even within the last few years, we're almost at that point where it will feel just like a Amazon purchase, and it might just be, you might find that the bank that you use isn't Chase, but it's some other new digital bank that's out there that you find more exciting than maybe your bank right now, and they offer things where you just can go on the app and hit one click, but behind the scenes it's actually using crypto and kicking off some of that stuff. And so I think that's really where it goes, where it's like not telling you about all the behind the scenes of how it works, and it'll feel just more like you said, just using that app. It's just using an app. And it's not that far. So that's what you can see it already if you are using PayPal or Venmo. Right now they're teaching you a little bit about crypto, but that might be the new way in which you access all digital assets, is through your wallet, and just tapping that button does all that stuff. It takes your money and converts it to this type of money that it needs in order to have that flexibility to, you don't have to have a person in between it.
Yeah. So we're still in the bandwidth of time where, like, the background infrastructure has been catching up.
Oh yeah,
they've been like this thing jumped so far ahead, because 22, like, this stuff was crazy exciting for a lot of people, and then there was just this right, and it just there was this compression period.
Yeah.
we're so far ahead of the infrastructure.
You're just, if you're, because I know you were doing it, so you're just so far ahead that,
Yes.
you're the pioneer.
Yeah.
You're in the early wagon, trekking across,
And then there's no general store when you get to the town because there's no infrastructure.
right.
Yeah.
So it's and what I've seen is that all it takes is an app. Everyone knows, and then people figure it out. And like I said, like people will learn, but it might not be the way in which we figured it out, and it will need to be simpler, but it will still have that history element, like
Yes.
that's so important, and but it just might be powered by some new app on your phone that or Chase evolves, or whoever you use for banking.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's all this background stuff. There's different powers that be and interest groups that are like battling it out to, move it forward and then not move it forward. And we just got to play that game until we get to that point where it's easily accessible.
Yeah, it's not too far. That's kind of thing. Like I said, even
you don't think it's that far?
No, not at all. I think, if you just look at the story arc that we've already talked about, and I really only have 20 years that I've talked about in that career. Like we went from not having mobile phones with touch screen to touch computers. Like that wasn't a thing even 20 years ago. So a lot can happen within 5 years in technology, and that's why I'm really excited about, again, like what I'm building right now and what I explained to some of the people that I'm doing. It's like we're those pioneers at the beginning, building for when people finally do come to explore. And we'd already had popped up shop so that people have something fun to see and do and stuff like that and explore. Just even last week we learned about Meta coming out with a new type of glasses which has displays in them and stuff like that are
like a heads-up
cool
display kind of thing.
Cool, right? And so it's not always going to be. So first off, you don't always have to access a virtual world with goggles, but that technology is already getting to the point of just normal eyewear, and it's just going to, every year is just a new way in which technology is growing and evolving, and that's what's super exciting about it.
That's so awesome, man. No, I'm kind of, I think I would be in the front 50% of people that are in the know about it, right?
Yeah.
So obviously I'm not too heavily educated in the technicals, and it's even funny because in 22 it was like, oh man, now I gotta learn how to write code and Python and all this stuff, and like in 2025, 3 years later, I can just open up ChatGPT and like, hey brother, I want write me an ERC 721 that has XYZ, and then make it this and make it that, and then in 3 seconds it spits out an entire contract.
Right. Yeah, that's a great example.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, I was in despair that I had to learn code to write contracts, and then each contract had to be specific for every piece of artwork, and I'm like, oh, I just want to give up. And then 3 years later, I'm like, this will take me 10 minutes to write code for my entire collection, maybe.
Right. No,
that's insanity.
It's gonna be every week. Our minds are gonna be blown by AI, but even 3 years ago, I started showing you a bit of AI. If you think back around image manipulation, and I showed you how I was taking an image through simple language prompting that I could manipulate it to create another piece of work. I don't know if you remember that, but since then, only 3 years, what it produced then was nothing that it can produce now. It's evolved so fast.
Yeah.
It can start to produce things that your mind starts to see that it couldn't do even 3 years ago and stuff like that. And so, the fact that you can now ask an AI to write code is super exciting to me. I think that it just makes it more accessible for anyone to take an idea and bring it to the world just faster, and it'll get better. So I love that. I love that. I think, and I even shared this with students. One thing that I do is I often go back to my college, and I talk and I share. And I shared with them because they had a lot of fear around AI replacing jobs. Everyone felt it, but I wanted them to think about it also around, like you'd already thought about it now and seen around. It's now you're able to come up with something even more creative, and maybe it's not even about just speed like I mentioned, but it's also you're able to take something that you couldn't achieve, but now you could achieve it and take what you are as a human and work with it to create that thing that is even better, So I think that's really inspiring, and I think that we have so many years ahead of us, and we'll see with what it does to the world. But I get really excited that from what I've been doing with it, that it allows me to take a lot of these ideas that I'd always thought about over the many years and finally be able to bring them to the world.
Yeah, I have the same kind of mentality with artwork. It's like, oh man, there's some things in my mind I can do them, but like my hands, I can't get to do it yet, or I don't have this skill set, or I don't have this tool, or I don't have it, and it's like, in my mind, I can have it done in like a fraction of a second, and I can see the final product. But like with my hands, it's going to be this arc of history to get there. And so like beginning to condense and crunch that down is really, really cool and really exciting, because the creator kind of already has the end state finished. And that's the hardest part of being a creative person, is like we're just in this clunky world of like, I gotta, yeah. And it's like it's already done in there, and you just have to hold the picture of it. And so that's really exciting as far as like what to look forward to in the future. Let me ask you this before we close out. What, just to tease people, like what's the 1 or 2 year prediction? Like what's your arc? What's your like, hey, this is going to be exciting to see happen soon.
As far as
here's what I think is going to happen soon, or like here's what's kind of cool, or like
with technology, or just anything with anything.
Any of it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great question. I think what I'm doing right now, like nobody's doing, and so I think that I'm really excited just about showing more people how to apply their creativity to what I'm doing, and showing them that, because what I'm doing right now, and once people see it and get it, like they realize that what I'm doing is helping facilitate and foster peak creativity, and that's what happens in the metaverse, is that you can and it's meant to be an experience that you go into, which you can do stuff and see stuff and explore stuff that isn't in the real world. You can fly around it. You can see stuff at different scale. You can you can go from one gallery to another, and you've just jumped across and met people from one part of the world to the other part of the world. So that right now is really something that I still find it exciting, because I know that we're not there yet. Because what I'm doing right now, not everybody's there yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm still excited about what I'm doing, because it's not mainstream yet. That's the short of it there. And my excitement comes from finding those people who I call are metaverse ready, who are ready to like spend energy and time and see where they can bring with who they are to make it interesting. It's not always me, but it's each person. And that's what I love for when people make that connection, and that it's they'll go to bed and then they can wake up, and then they'll start constantly think about like new things that they never thought of that they can bring to this new experience. And them talking to me about it and us working together, how that could happen. And I get a lot of energy around that. So I think there's gonna be way more of that happening.
Awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, it'll just continue to unravel. So I'm excited to see what comes forward from it. Because you've definitely always been one of those people that's just much further ahead than others. And sometimes, I can have those moments for myself. It's challenging to be like, I'm just walking on this island by myself and like, look at this, it's so cool. And people are like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, to your point of being on an island by yourself, I think that is something that you should work not to be on that island by yourself. Like you should find people that
bring them on board.
Bring them on board and talk through them, so you don't feel that way. Because just like we met, we have things that both excite us, and that's what has brought us together. And so I don't think you should ever feel like you're on an island on your own. There's always somebody that you can meet that will be interesting and will bring joy to your life, to your island.
Yeah, to your island. Populate the island.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming through.
Yeah, thank you.
Chat about this, sharing what you're up to, and man, I'm definitely stoked on this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had the opportunity to hang out and just chat.
Me too. I'm glad we were able to catch up, and I can't wait to see future episodes. They're going to be great. So.
Yeah, no, I'm just excited to chat with people and have more presence, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the most meaningful thing we have, really. It's all we got. So, no, I appreciate you coming through, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, appreciate you.